Franco will be proud. Spain has introduced a new public order law restricting journalists at public demonstrations. The press can be fined €30,000 for disturbance of public safety. Protestors, a title which can also include journalists reporting the protest, can be fined €600,000. This is Europe, the union which awards the Sakharov Prize for freedom of expression.
Lo que hace es que elimina la figura del juez y pone solo la figura de la policía. La policía te denuncia y tú no vas a un juicio, tienes que pagar una multa que va desde 600 euros a 60.000, 100.000, incluso 300.000 euros, dependiendo del delito de lo que se te acuse, que puede ser desde difundir una fotografía de un policía pegando a alguien en una manifestación.
New York Times wrote an editorial last 22nd of April saying that Spain is going back to the dark times of dictatorship of Franco. Because now if you concentrate, for instance, in front of the parliament or a public building, you will be threatened as a terrorist in the sense that you will have to pay fees that can come from 30,000 euros to 600,000 euros.
Puede ser manifestarse de forma no autorizada en frente del Parlamento, o incluso se pueden también sancionar a periodistas que estén ejerciendo su labor de información en ese momento, como hemos visto en el Estado español, que han sido detenidos muchos periodistas que, por ejemplo, estaban cubriendo un desahucio, que, por ejemplo, estaban cubriendo una manifestación.
Supone un retroceso en los derechos y en las libertades que tanto nos costó conquistar después de una dictadura franquista de 40 años. Nosotros creemos que la democracia se construye con más libertad, con más acuerdos. No hay que tenerle miedo jamás a la libertad para construir la democracia.
The range of fines and the broad scope of interpretation makes a bad law worse. There's a €600 penalty for insulting a police officer, whatever that may be. I don't like your beard, officer, €600. Spreading damaging photos of police officers, €30,000, while Mr. Rajoy has to raise cash to pay for austerity measures somehow.
I think that there is a link, very clear link, between economic moment of the business cycle and the social attitude in the streets. And for instance, if there are conservative governments like in Hungary or in Spain, they do not attack the real roots of the economic crisis. It's much more easier to repress on the streets by using the police or by disincentivating with huge funds.
You can argue that they are probably demonstrating against restrictive economic policies of the government. But I mean, if you start hindering people from expressing their anger or whatever it is they want to express, I mean, that's the end of democracy.
Es una ley anti-15M, es una ley anti-indignados, es una ley de que el señor Rajoy quería que las mayorías en el Estado español siguieran silenciadas.
In Cervantes' epic novel, Don Quixote declares, "Do you see over yonder, friend Sancho, 30 or 40 hulking giants? I intend to do battle with them and slay them." Distressed, Sancho urgently replies, "Your Grace, come back, Señor Don Quixote. I swear to God, you're charging sheep." It seems Don Quixote Mariano Rajoy, Prime Minister of Spain, has seen hulking giants outside Parliament. Determined to slay them before they undo his Conservative Party's majority, Rajoy is charging sheep in the name of security.
I think it's a signal of, how to say, of fear coming from the Spanish government. And they are afraid of citizens. They are afraid of freedom. They are afraid of just public and transparent debate on everything.
The Public Security Law, or GAG law, came into effect on the 1st of July despite just 7% of public support. There is a loud chorus of complaint from the United Nations, Spanish judges, press associations and even a Spanish police union.
Todos los diferentes asociaciones de jueces de España han criticado esta medida y solo ha salido con el apoyo del Partido Popular y con la oposición de todos los grupos parlamentarios en su contra, que han dicho abiertamente que cuando ya no gobierne el Partido Popular en la próxima legislatura, que no va a gobernar, se retirará esta ley.
There will be new elections in November in Spain, and this law, like many other laws, a new majority, I think that will eliminate them.
Podemos leader Pablo Iglesias has asked the Council of Europe to examine whether the safety law breaches the European Union's Charter of Fundamental Rights. Prime Minister Rajoy says it's an exaggeration to present the law as a restriction on fundamental rights. Human rights are not variations on a tune. Press freedom in Europe should not be a different melody country by country. Europe's governments cannot pick and choose fundamental rights, playing a new track to suit the moment. The gag law forms part of a pattern of aggression against the media, not just in Spain, but in Hungary, Greece, Romania, Bulgaria and the United Kingdom. Hungary has become the poster boy for bad behaviour, largely because of Viktor Orbán's overt hostility to the press and his initial public defiance to the European Union when challenged to respect press freedom.
In Turkey, which has more journalists imprisoned than any other country in the world, only this week, the President stated that social media are more dangerous than a bomb, and regulators fined media for, quote, inciting hatred. These actions speak volumes about the power of the free word.
Probably it's not easy to put it in evidence in juridical terms, no? But there's another way to measure it. If the same law was passed by Turkish government, for instance, then we would every European citizen would say, oh, what a shame, it's impossible, it's not consistent with European values.
We invited the Spanish mission to the European Union to participate in this programme, but we received no response. We also invited the centre-right European People's Party to participate. In the end, no one was available for interview. The European People's Party is the European parliamentary group to which Orbán and Rajoy's parties belong.
Well, you know, we have seen it with Hungary. I mean, you have a big majority in the European Parliament by the Conservatives. The Hungarian Fidesz party is part of that European People's Party fraction. So they get away with a lot of things, you know, because if they were to kick out the Hungarian Fidesz party, you know, they wouldn't be the biggest bloc anymore. So they have to tread very carefully, because otherwise, you know, the Hungarians may say, okay, if you don't like us anymore, we'll leave you, but that would have grave consequences for the majority in this House here. That's why we don't see the kind of outcry that these measures would warrant.
The European Union doesn't bother really. There are debates in the European Parliament about the Hungarian situation, for instance, but there is no real action being taken towards these governments. That's the impression I have. But the EU should do, I think, because these are common values and this is what the EU is built upon.
President of the European Federation of Journalists, Morgens Blitzobregard, said the public security law clearly violates the fundamental rights of both journalists and citizens to freedom of expression and access to information as guaranteed by the EU Convention on Human Rights.
Nosotros creemos en el trabajo de esta institución y también en el trabajo que hagamos cada uno de los diputados. Por tanto, creemos y vamos a seguir planteando iniciativas a la Comisión Europea denunciando los incumplimientos constantes del Estado español para que sea la Comisión Europea quien reclame al Estado español el cumplimiento de las directivas europeas.
The Commission can act when there is EU law. And here, to apply the Charter of Fundamental Rights, we need EU law. And we don't have a European directive on media pluralism, for example.
Do member states now think that they can do what they like when it comes to European values like press freedom because the institutions won't push back hard enough?
Well, that could be the eventual result, of course, if the European Union and the Commission doesn't really try to sanction some of the member states who are, pushing in that direction. Of course, there is the moral and moral duty of the European Commission to speak out and say, listen, this is not according to our standards. This is not how we see the European Union. they should speak out.
Esperamos que tener una respuesta positiva, porque de esa manera las instituciones europeas se van a hacer creíbles frente a la ciudadanía.
In Dostoevsky's 19th century novel, The Brothers Karamazov, there's a parable called The Grand Inquisitor. In the story, Jesus Christ returns to earth in Seville at the time of the Spanish Inquisition. The people recognize him and adore him, but he's arrested and sentenced to death. The Grand Inquisitor tells him that the church no longer needs him. Jesus, he says, would only interfere with the mission of the church. Dostoevsky contrasts the freedoms given to the people by Jesus and the lack of freedoms under the Inquisition. The Inquisitor argues that freedom dooms society to suffer. Dostoevsky is not speaking directly of religious faith, but of politics and the deceit of a morally bankrupt government. And so it is, the great deception. A prime minister serving not the freedom of the people, but self-serving a party in power. Mariano Rajoy has introduced laws made in the image of Franco. The state has again become a demigod.